error occurred. Please try again later. Well, it says we're live, but I'm not getting any feedback, so I'm going to just check to make sure on my own page that this is in fact streaming. Give me just uno momento. Simple lighting engine. Yeah, it looks like it is. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. All right, real quick. Wanted to take the time to go over a quick lighting tutorial. This was something that I needed for a game that I'm currently working on, and it was such a simple build that I thought I would make it publicly available and make a tutorial publicly available. So this is what we're looking at. Right? Very, very basic flashlight-esque type of lighting system. This can be static if you need to just have this in a fixed location. You can update its X and Y coordinate values, such as, for example, here you can see it follows my mouse. Right here it is outside of the game viewport. And once I'm in the viewport, it follows my mouse's X and Y coordinate. Essentially, in theory, what this is an image. No, let me start that over. What this is a surface that's drawn with a black rectangle that's the size of the room, whose alpha is adjusted, in my game's case, over time to kind of simulate a light and dark. There are other ways to blend colors in to kind of make it simulate moonlight. I haven't gotten to that point yet. This is just trying to make this as simple as possible and actually have it deliver something that, looks pretty good. You can see there's not a lot to this, right? I have my logo and I have my image sprite. And what we end up doing is we draw that black rectangle and then we draw that image, that light image, onto the black rectangle while using the subtract GPU blend mode. And what it does is essentially let you see through that black rectangle. And it kind of simulates light, right? So first thing we're going to look at, you can use whatever images you want, right? This is just the image that I'm using for my light. But the engine itself is pretty basic, right? We want to open up an object, and in its create step, create our light surface. And I like to just subtract the depth just to make sure that it's above everything. You're going to have to work in your game to make sure that your rectangle, your black rectangle, or rather your surface, is drawn over the parts of your game that you want it to draw over. If there are other things you don't want to have drawn over, or I guess drawn under this surface, then that's up to you to determine whatever depth you need to set it at. In my step, simply for my game, I just update. Actually, I don't even think I need to do this. Right? Yeah, because I update it here. So this I don't even need. We don't even need a step event here. So don't worry about that, little guy. We're going to cut that, right? But here is where we actually draw our surface, right? So we draw the surface. I put it at a coordinate of 0, 0. Right, it starts up in the top corner. Then we set our surface target to that new surface that we just drew. We set our color, we set our alpha, and then we draw the black rectangle in the size of our room, right, room width and room height, on that light surface, that newly created light surface. And then you always want to make sure that you run a surface reset target. A lot of these draw events, you guys know how it is. Right? You want to just make sure that you close up everything, because otherwise, if in another piece of code, if I'm addressing if I'm drawing something, right, and if I haven't reset the target, it's going to draw it to the last pointed to surface, right? And then the actual light image itself, I do a couple of things. I set it, I could probably get away with this equaling 100. I haven't tested that yet, but I just didn't change anything because it works. I set this to be 1 less than whatever the depth of the surface is, right? Although I'll bet you anything I could still run this at 100. Let's just test that real quick, because it's still going to draw it at that. Yeah, okay, so you could get away with drawing that at the same depth, right? What I do is I turn off the cursor so you don't see the arrow, right? That's going to be something that you'll want to figure out on your own for whatever game you're doing. And I have this value here called flicker. We can get into that in a second. This is pretty custom to what I'm doing, right? You don't need to do what's in the step event other than, yeah, you don't have to do any of that stuff. But to actually draw the light source, right, we're going to set our blend mode to subtract. We're going to point it to the target that we created, or the surface that we created. And then we're going to draw self, right? So we're telling this object to draw itself onto that surface, right? And then we're going to reset our target, just like before. And then you also want to reset your GPU blend mode to normal, because otherwise, again, anything that you draw further down the line, if you don't reset this, is going to draw it with the subtract blend mode enabled, and that can throw things off, right? So then everything that I have in the step here is custom to what I'm doing, right? I have the updating the X and Y coordinates so that it actually moves with my mouse. And then all of the other stuff there, this flicker, and then the adding to the X scale and Y scale, checking to when it gets to a certain size, basically flipping that switch, and then reducing the X and Y scale until it gets to a certain size, and flipping that switch again. So it kind of gives this pulsating look to it, right? So if you see the light there, you can kind of see how it slowly just kind of pulses a little bit. That's something that you guys can figure out and do however you want to do in your game. That's it. It's extremely simple to add something that looks really, really cool. And if you guys have any questions, you can certainly comment on this video. You can send me a message. You can respond. I'm sure you can find me in the Reddit, the Game Maker subreddit. My username is I'll be in my office. And yeah, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and hopefully you get to put some of this stuff to use. Thank you kindly.